Okay, welcome back everyone. We are continuing over here in Tehillim, and we're holding in number 50, and we hope that we'll conclude Tehillim Nun number 50 today as well. We're in Pasuk 14, verse number 14, and the Psukim itself, especially the way that Rav Hirsch is going to explain, is a pretty scathing commentary about the way that we should probably look at ourselves and think about our own personal avodas Hashem, and the way that we will probably view others. Of course, we have to be dan l'chavschus, we have to judge people favorably, to try to appreciate their struggles and where they're coming from. But it's a very strong language that Rav Hirsch is going to use today based on the words of Dovid HaMelech. So we're holding over here number 14. And it says, Zavach Elokim Taida, says you have to offer Taida, acknowledgement to Hashem, V'shalim le'elyon nedarecha, and you have to pay your vows le'elyon, to the one that is most high, to the Rebbeinu Shalom. So this is the positive part of Rav Hirsch's explanation today, and that is that a person has an obligation to always recognize everything that, in fact, if anyone's not on mute, there's no sound at all. Oh, because I'm muted. There you go. Let me unmute right now. Okay, so you missed the introduction. Anyway, we're going over here. We're starting. Thank you for letting me know. We're starting over here from verse number 14 today in Tehillim. And we're going to see some outstanding ideas of Tehillim and Rav Hirsch together. Once again, anyone that's not on mute, please try to mute yourself. Thank you very much. Says the Gemara the following. Says the Pasuk the following. Zvach Elokim Taida. Says you should offer an acknowledgement to Hashem. V'shalim le'elyon nedarecha. And you have to pay off your vows to the one above, to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And Rav Hirsch comments over here the following idea. A person has to always recognize how much of the goodness, how much of benefit, how much they have that is coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if a person would begin to see just how much they have filling up their life, so then the natural response would be that I want to make a neder, I want to vow myself to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and I want to, so to speak, consecrate all of my deeds to Hashem. And here we have a korban that we're speaking about over here, the sacrifice that one is going to bring to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And says Rav Hirsch, it's not just the animal sacrifice that we're referring to over here, but rather it's sacrificing and consecrating our deeds, our actions to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, almost in a sacrificial, but which means in a way in which we're going to give over of ourselves to Hashem. Like the Ramchal writes in the Mesilas Yesharim, that if a person would just examine a regular day in their life, and they would see how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes care of us, how much He fills up our lives, how much He ladens us with His blessings, with His goodness, with His kindness, a person would realize it's impossible to ever pay Hashem back for everything that He does. Multiply that by 70 years, 80 years, 100 years, 90 years. Yes, we have nisyanis, we have challenges, we have problems with health, we have difficulties in shalom bayis, we have difficulties with, of course, all those things are true. No one's denying all of that, but the good that a person has in their life outweighs the challenges, outweighs the suffering, outweighs the hardships that a person will go through. And even when we are going through the difficulties of life, Hashem continues to give us life, continues to give us a breath, and He continues to allow us to walk and to see and to go and to do and to accomplish, and we can find people that can help us and all different things. So no matter what a person's going through in life, there's always the bracha that Hashem is sending him. So if you multiply that and you magnify that by all the days in a person's life, 80 years, 90 years, 100 years, there's so much that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us. How could you ever pay Him back? It's an impossibility. You can never ever pay Hashem back. So at least, says the Ramchal, at least a person can be lahayda, they can give gratitude to Hashem, and we can try to do the mitzvahs and keep the Torah to the best of our ability. Rav Hirsch is saying the similar idea over here, and that is when you acknowledge and you recognize everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for a person. When you see His hand of loving kindness, when you see the blessings that He brings upon your life, how can you pay Him back? You can't pay Him back. So we make in the Dar, and we vow ourselves to Hashem that we're going to try our best. We're going to do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do. We have to acknowledge the debt of gratitude that we have to the Ribbono Shel Olam and the tribute that we owe to Hashem. And therefore it's incumbent upon each and every one of us to fulfill our purpose and our mission here in life, and that is that the vows that we make, nedarai, l'shalim la'Hashem, like Dovid HaMelech says in Hallel, we make vows, and we have an obligation to pay them off to the Ribbono Shel Olam. We have to follow up. We have to be people of integrity with our words and do what we say we're going to do. And this, he says, is like a natural thing. It's so obvious how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us. It's so in our face all the time. Obviously, a person is going to have to be able to make sure that they pay HaKadosh Baruch Hu back in the best way that we possibly can. And the only way that we can do that is try our best, because there is nothing else that we can do. You can never really pay Hashem back. But the more effort that we make, the more that we try, the more that we move in the right direction, that's what we can do. Number 15, Ukar'eni b'yom tzara. I call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on a day of tzara, of suffering, of trouble. Achal letzcha usachbeni, says the Dovid HaMelech, Hashem says, I will make you free, and you will be able to honor me. So we call upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu on a day of tzara when there is suffering going on in our lives. And Hashem says, I will then make you free, and you will be able to honor me. Says Rav Hirsch, a very beautiful idea over here. And that is that in a person's most troubling times in their life, in the times when they find themselves in tsar, suffering and in difficulties, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, recognize that I myself am the one that is guiding your destiny, and I am leading you into every pathway and every journey that you are in. And therefore, when you find yourself in a tzara, when you find yourself in a difficulty, where do you turn for help? So I'm the one who led you there, aren't I? I'm the one who put you into that situation, aren't I? And therefore you should turn to me, and me alone, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because in this time of troubles that you're going to be in, and this covenant that you're going to make with me over here, we're talking about the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So then that is the way, as it says in the verse over here, that I'm going to be able to set you free, and you're going to honor me. Now what does it mean if a person is suffering, person is in difficult times? How is HaKadosh Baruch Hu setting us free? So perhaps what the verse is saying and what Rav Hirsch is writing is the following idea. And that is that when a person is meshabed themselves, when a person subjugates themselves to the will of Hashem, and they humble themselves and they mavato, they nullify their own self before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they realize that everything in fact is coming from the Ribbono Shel Olam. And I'm just going through the motions that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends me on. He wants me to recognize Him and to see Him, and He wants me to go through this, for whatever reason it is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to go through this particular thing in my life right now. And I continually recognize that it's all the Ribbono Shel Olam. So then even in the tzara, even in the difficulty, even when I'm going through the challenges, even when it feels sometimes so restrictive, it's really the ultimate freedom that I'm going to have, because I recognize Hashem is the one that is guiding my life, And there is definitely something that is positive and beneficial that I am going to gain from this situation that I'm going through right now. That's not a person that is a slave to his negative thoughts. It's not a person that is enslaved to the difficulties that he's encountering. It is a person that is actually being freed up of the externalities of this world, and they're able to be medabik themselves to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a result of what they are going through. Says Rav Hirsch, the way that he's understanding this verse, is that if on a day of trouble, if in a time of difficulty, you will learn who to call upon, which is only the Ribbono Shel Olam, so then you're going to be freed up of all of the constraints of that which are taking place around you, and then you'll be able to honor me. Because that's really the greatest covet, the greatest honor in the world to Hashem. The greatest honor is to recognize that no matter what it is that I'm going through, it's all the Ribbono Shel Olam. Hakol b'yidei Shemayim. Everything is in the hands of heaven. Everything, chutz miyirah Shemayim, except for the fear. The way that we're going to deal with that. The way that we're going to deal with it is to recognize it's all Hashem. And He's not doing anything wrong. Hashem doesn't make any mistakes. If Hashem doesn't make any mistakes, that means there's nothing bad that's happening in a person's life. It might be hard. It might be difficult. It might be challenging. But it's not bad. It's only good. And if I'll buckle down and I'll figure out what is the goodness in that particular situation, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from me? What should the response be? So then I am mechabed, then I give HaKadosh Baruch Hu the proper honor that he deserves for doing something that's going to make me into a greater person. You look through the Chumash. The whole Chumash, all of the Avos HaKadoshim, the Imahos, our matriarchs, and our forefathers, they had easy lives. They had one difficulty after another. Each one had a harder life than the one that came before him. Klal Yisrael in the Midbar, we go through Mitzrayim, we just finished the Yitzias Mitzrayim, but this parsha is disaster. Kisisa is a disastrous parsha. Klal Yisrael is on the highest of levels, and suddenly we're standing by the foot of the mountain. We miscalculate by a few hours when Moshe Rabbeinu is supposed to come back down, and we end up immersing ourselves in the Chet HaEgel, the sin of the golden calf, and we lose the glory once again, and we spend the next 40 years. Well, as a result of that, and the Meraglim and everything, we spend a long time wandering around the desert as a result. And the Chazal tell us that every punishment that comes to the world, to Klal Yisrael, there's a miktzas, there's still a little bit of the cleansing that has to take place from the Chet HaEgel, from the sin of the golden calf. It was easy. It was easy to be in the desert. It was easy to stand by Har Sinai. It was easy. This relationship, this tenuous relationship that we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you step out of line a little bit, and that's it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings down His wrath, but it's still not bad. It's called a consequence. It's called a punishment. Even though that we learned on Shabbos that kids don't get any consequences or punishments anymore, it's a free reign already. If you're a kid these days, and if you're a grandmother or you're a grandparent, that's it. You just turn a blind eye. You don't look at anything that your kids are doing anymore. It'll make it so much easier for you. You don't have to get stressed out that your kids don't mechanech their children anymore. It's the way of the world. But in the Torah, there's consequences. And there are consequences when you behave in a certain way. Hashem says, I have to redirect you and guide you in the proper path. How does He do that? So sometimes it's suffering, sometimes it's hardships, sometimes it's difficulties, all of these things. Why? Not because it's bad, it's because it's the best thing for the person to keep them in tow, to keep them in line. And when a person acknowledges that and accepts that upon themselves, this is the reality, HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, then you're free. You're no longer trapped in your mind and in your thoughts. How a person can have difficulties in their life, and they could go into the most negative places of all in their mind and in their emotional world. And they can eat themselves up alive over that which is going on. Says Rav Hirsch, Chas v'shalom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't send you the tsar, didn't send you the difficulty to eat yourself up alive. He didn't send you the tsar, the pain, in order that you should become an angry, a grumpy person. No, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent it to you to recognize that everything is coming from Hashem. When you turn your energies back towards the Ribbono Shel Olam, you're cherus, you're free. You're free to do what you want to do, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, and that's the ultimate honor that you can give to Hashem. Now this is all the person that is following in the ways of Hashem. Now the pasuk says something that would seem the opposite of this person, but Rav Hirsch is going to turn everything over here. Verse number Tes Zayin 16, V'lo Rasha. However, to the Rasha, to the wicked person, Omar Elokim Malecha L'saper Chukai. Hashem says to the Rasha, to the wicked person, what are you telling me all your lip service for over here? You want to talk about the chukim, about the statutes, about the ordinances that I give you in the Torah. Vatisa brisi alei picha. He said your lips are just prattling off something about this covenant that exists between you and I. So you have a rasha, you have a wicked person, and the wicked person over here is seemingly giving over some kind of a lip service to the Ribbono Shel Olam, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it's not really worth that much to me. Now comes along Rav Hirsch and he says over the following idea, and that is like this. And okay, let's see how he says it over here. And he says that this person that we're defining, we're calling a rasha, a wicked person, who is being condemned over here by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, it seems like this person over here, the rasha, the wicked man, he is standing firmly in halacha, in Jewish law, and he's telling the world, I worship Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling him. He says, "What you're standing up and you're telling over drushes, you're giving over, talking about me, you're talking about my Torah, you're talking about my mitzvahs, but what's it worth?" says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because it's really empty words that you are saying over here. Explains Rav Hirsch, it would seem to us that this person who we're calling a rasha, wicked, is someone that he says he believes in Hashem, he's following his Torah, he worships the Ribbono Shel Olam, he honors the Torah, he might even be a ben Torah, he might be a Talmid Chacham, he might be a scholar and a sage, a lamdan, he knows how to learn up a Gemara and the like. However, says Rav Hirsch, this man is speaking very glibly. He's just, it's prattle that's coming out of his mouth. And really what we're going to see is that as much as he talks about trying to be the Torah Jew, or trying to say that he believes in Hashem, as we're going to see, it's emptiness, it's air, there's nothing that is really there. And he says, and what is the reason, what is the source behind it all? He writes, because the dinim, the laws that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us in the Torah, have no effect on the actual content or the essence of this person. He studies, he learns, as I heard many years ago, it's just mental gymnastics in this person's mind. And it's like an exercise that he does intellectually in his brains. However, the heart is not in his learning, it's not in the Torah at all. And therefore this covenant that he's describing is only on his lips, but the neshama knows absolutely nothing about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Has no connection. It doesn't resonate inside the soul. When he davens because he has no choice. When he learns because it's interesting. When he keeps the mitzvahs because, well, that's what my father taught me, my mother taught me, and my Zaidi taught me. That's what it is. That's what I do. Do I feel any passion towards the mitzvahs? Do I feel connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when I'm doing? Would I give up my life for such a thing? Would I be meiser nefesh? Would I sacrifice myself to make sure that I could learn or I could daven? Or, as somebody told me, a chashuv, a person told me, before COVID, he would never ever miss a minyan. Didn't exist in his mind. There was no such option. You're on vacation, you'll drive 25 miles to go to make it to a minyan. You're not feeling well. If, in fact, it's only a low-grade fever, you're out the door, you're at the minyan. Your wife's having a baby, you'll find a way to get to a minyan when you could get out of the hospital. Never occurred to him that a minyan is an optional thing. Then we had COVID. COVID comes along and says, there is no minyan. You're not allowed to go to shul. And it's okay. Because what could you do? Because if you go to shul, maybe you're going to die. We don't want you to die, so it's a mitzvah to stay home and to daven at home. Even though now the CDC is coming out with all these studies right now that maybe was the worst thing in the world they did for the world, to lock down the world, all the depression and all of the anxiety and all the obesity and all the hurt, all the terrible things that took place in the workforce and all the people that lost money. That's worse than how many people would have died if there was no lockdowns. Okay, fine. We'll leave it. It happened already. It already happened. It doesn't matter. Could have, should have, would have. It doesn't matter. It happened already. But they told us you can't daven in a minyan. And we went months and months and months without a minyan. So this fellow told me, he said his adherence to the importance of a minyan completely changed since COVID. And as a man who's tremendous Yirah Shamayim, and he was very honest with me, he told me that now, if he gets stuck someplace and it's hard to get to a minyan, okay, I won't go to the minyan. I spent 4 months without a minyan. Okay, it's COVID anyway. He's not a Rosh Hashem. This person is not a Rosh. The Rav Hirsch is saying, when a person does things and it's all lip service, when a person does mitzvahs and his heart is not in there, when a person's involved in Torah and he seems to even be an example of what Torah is supposed to be, but he says these are just facts, it's information, but it's not to affect me and to change me as a person. Says Dovid HaMelech, again, the way that Rav Hirsch is understanding over here, this is the definition in the realm of spirituality of what a rasha, of what a wicked person is. A person that has no real inner connection with the Torah and the mitzvahs, even if he claims that he's doing it, says Dovid HaMelech over here, your words are lip service. The Navi writes in so many different places, the prophets write, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I don't care about your lip service. I don't care about your karbanos, the sacrifice that you are bringing that mean nothing at all to you. All I want is your heart. I want you to be involved. That if you're not involved, then it's empty. And there's nothing there. It doesn't mean anything. It'll be imagine a rabbi gets up and he preaches about how beautiful Torah and mitzvahs are. It doesn't mean anything to him. It would be ridiculous to say such a thing. So you have a person who talks about mitzvahs, he talks about Torah, he says, yeah, we do this, we do that, we send our kids all to the right school. But it means absolutely nothing. Didn't make an impression on his heart. Such a person can't grow, a person cannot proceed, a person can't go michal l'chal, from strength to strength. They're never going to do such a thing. And therefore says Rav Hirsch, if it's only on the lips, then that's just a very external thing. That's not a very internal thing. And Torah is supposed to be the most internalizing experience that a person can have. The Torah are the words of Hashem. The words of Hashem are supposed to speak to our heart and to our soul. And if the Torah doesn't make an impression inside of you, then it remains mibachutz on the outside, and it will never ever change a person. It will never bring a person closer to the Ribbono Shel Olam. It's probably better than doing nothing, meaning if you're going to keep mitzvahs for perfunctory reasons without any real connection, any feeling, it's better than not doing mitzvahs at all. But Dovid HaMelech is saying if it's almost like the kavan, it's like that. You're not even trying. Meaning, if you try, there are many people that they try and they can't make a connection. But they really try. They try and they try and they try. I have a friend, he has a few psychological issues that make it very, very hard for him to really connect with mitzvahs, to really connect with daven. For him to daven, it's like, he told me, for him to daven, the Shema Esrei is torture. Could you imagine every day of your life, 3 times a day, for 25, 30 years, every single time that you step up to the plate to daven, you're torturing yourself. And there's no way to get around it. It's just the way that his brain works. Every Yom Tiv that he knows he's going to have to, he has so many different halachas that he's going to have to keep. You can imagine every Yom Tiv brings on anxiety and torture and pain, but he's trying. He didn't give up. So even if he's not reveling in the highest levels of ruchnius, of spirituality, but he's trying, he's putting in his effort. We're talking over here about a person who claims to be a Torah Jew, but he doesn't really make any effort at all to internalize the messages and the lessons and the connection that he's supposed to have. Rather, everything remains completely external. He doesn't want to go into the next level. The next level is achrayus, creates responsibility. The next level means I have to think differently about the way I'm going to live my life and lead my life and the things that I'm going to do. It's a whole different world. I don't want that, says the person. You don't want the gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us? You don't want the internal feelings of connection to the Rebbeinu Shalom? You don't want that? You don't want to elevate your neshama and come to another level? Says Rav Hirsch, that's what Dovid HaMelech is talking about. That's a rasha. That's a wicked person. A person who has it right there in front of his face and denies it all, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not want. So he goes on, it says over here that you're l'saper chukai. All you're doing is you're just telling stories. You're just talking about my chukim, about my mitzvahs. It doesn't mean anything to you. Says Rav Hirsch, it implies that this wicked man's attitude is of utter indifference to the statutes which he pays lip service to, and he prattles on to others. He just talks about it, but there is no inner world. There is no connection, and the person himself is not making any effort at all. So this would be the difference between someone that is valiantly trying to make a connection with Hashem. It's not easy. We've spoken about this many times. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is extremely abstract. You don't see him, you don't hear him, you don't feel him. He's here, but he's very hard to find. We can only find him in the Torah, we can only find him in the mitzvahs, we can only find him in our davening, we can only find him in a chesed when we liken our midas, our character traits, to the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's the only way that we can find Hashem. So if you're striving and you're trying and you're making that effort, you'll get there eventually. It might not be to the portent that you would like. It might not be in the highest level that you wish that it could be. When you hear from other people, certain people have the spiritual antennas that they can tune in wherever they are. They can just tune into the ruchnius. Maybe you don't have those spiritual antennas, but they're still up, and you'll still get there, and you'll feel it at certain points, and you'll feel those warm, fuzzy feelings on the inside when you know that your neshama is connecting to the right things. All that is reality. But the person who doesn't make effort, and the person says, I don't want to make the effort to get into a world of real ruchnius, because a world of real ruchnius comes with demands. You can't get into the inner chamber of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and then behave however you want. Once you get into the inner world, like it's, they have all these, they have all these great people in the world, the presidents and the ministers and the queens and the kings, and movies and all these things, and they zoom into their life and they show you just how lawless and how empty these people's lives are. If you're in the inner circle, if you're the highest person in the world, and the whole world looks up to you, it comes with responsibility. You can't tear up your documents and flush them down the toilet in the White House. You can't do such things as they are accusing our ex-president of doing. You can't do that. You're the president of the United States. It comes with demands. You can't be a person who's the spokesman for a certain organization and then do the exact opposite. It doesn't work like that. You can't be a member of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world. You can't be the one that's talking all about the great things that he does and then not be in a certain way where you're going to behave properly. So therefore, says this person over here, which Dovid HaMelech is calling him a Rosh, a wicked man. If you stay on the outside and you don't allow yourself to go inside because you don't want the responsibility that comes along with it, then you're missing the whole point of Yiddishkeit. The whole point of Yiddishkeit, of mitzvahs, is to connect our neshamas to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's it. That's what it's all about. And if you say, well, I can't go into that world because I don't want that responsibility, so then Torah doesn't mean anything to you. Mitzvahs don't really mean anything to you. And that, says Dovid, that's rishus. That's wickedness. That's lawlessness. Because I'm giving you everything right there and you stay away. So again, a person doesn't have to be someone that is going to become the biggest tzaddik or tzaddikis in the world. But we have to try. We have to want to get close. And if you want to get closer, then eventually you are certainly going to get closer into that world. Okay, I'm skipping over here to 19 and 20. And he's still speaking about this wicked man. Picha shalachta bera'ah. Your mouth sends out ra'ah, evil. U'lishayncha tatzmid mirma. And your tongue speaks deceit. Teisha be'achicha. If you sit and you speak tadaber, you speak against your brother, b'menimecha, your mother's son. Titen doifi, there's slander coming out of your mouth. Says Rav Hirsch, the following idea. And that is, how do I know that you're wicked? How do I know that what you claim that you believe in is not really what you believe in? Because the Torah says that slander, gossip, lashon hara, is like one of the worst things you could possibly do in the world. Hashem gave us a mouth. He gave us a mouth to learn. He gave us a mouth to speak words of Torah, to learn, to daven, to say Tehillim, to speak words of Kedusha, to give other people chizuk, to encourage them. And your mouth, which you are claiming is a religious mouth, where you're talking about all the things in the prattle that's coming out of there, what else do you do with that mouth? You sit around, you shoot the breeze, and you talk slander, lashon hara, about your own brother, about your own relatives, about people that are close to you. So the Torah that you claim that you believe in and that you want to keep, which says not to speak lashon hara, which says to be very careful about the way in which you speak about another Jew. V'afta l're'echa kamecha, love your fellow Jew the way that you love yourself. Zeh klal gadol b'Torah. That's what the Torah is all about. And you're using your mouth for other things. That itself, he writes, is a very major sign. You're incriminating yourself that this Torah, which you claim to have a hand in, really is quite meaningless to you. Number 22, Bino no zais. So please understand this. Shoichechei Eloka, those people that have forgotten about Hashem. Pen etroif, because maybe I will tear into pieces ve'ein matzil, and there won't be anybody there to deliver this anymore. What does this mean? Says Rav Hirsch, that if you, and this is really where this person is falling short. If you think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu only exists in a shul, and he only exists in a shir, and he only exists in the Beis HaMidrash, in the yeshiva, in the study halls, but that when you're outside the doors of the Beis Midrash, you're outside the doors of the Beis HaKnesses, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not really there, so then you're honestly missing the whole point of what our religion is all about. And Sheikhei Elokim, those that forget about Hashem, means that when they're not in an environment which is spiritual, when they're not in an environment which is pushing the envelope of Kedusha, of holiness, of Torah, of davening, of tefillah, but rather when they're out on the streets, when they're in their office, when they're in their home, when they're driving around, when they're shopping in the store, they disregard the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. And you think that Hashem is only in your life when you're in the Beis HaMikdash, when you're bringing offerings, when you're bringing sacrifices. Or when you're in the shul and you're davening to Hashem and you're opening up your Tehillim and you're saying Tehillim, you think that's the only time that Hashem is there, you are sadly mistaken. From inside of here, inside the shuls, inside the yeshivas, inside the shiurim where we're learning, from here we learn that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really everywhere. He's maybe magnified in these places. It's more apparent when we're over here, but He's also in your house. And He's also in your car. And He's also in your workspace. And He's also, when you're walking down the street, getting some exercise. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. I had a Rabbi once who told us that he was a very holy Jew, lived here in Los Angeles. And he said he was once driving with his daughter and a friend. His daughter had a friend. They were young girls. And as they were driving down the streets in Los Angeles, the daughter's friend saw one of her friends walking down the street. So she rolled down the window and she screamed out the car, Rachala, Rachala, look, 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 look. And she's waving her hand out the window. She's screaming and yelling that her friend should see her. Innocent thing. That's what girls do. So the rabbi's daughter turned to the girl and she says, you know, we don't scream like that out loud. He was telling this young girl that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is right here. And there's a modest way that we get somebody's attention. To lean out the window, to scream and yell like that, that's not our way. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everywhere. He's in the shul, of course. He's in the yeshiva, yes, all the more so. He's under the chuppah, yeah, of course. When you're under the chuppah, you're walking your child down and you can feel the power of the Shekhinah there, yes. But He's everywhere. And these that are sheichechei Elokah, those that forget about the Ribono Shel Olam, that is a very, very big problem. Because Malay Kol Ha'aretz B'Chavoda HaKadosh Baruch Hu fills up the entire universe with His glory. There's not a single nook or cranny in this world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't exist. And if you forget about Hashem when you're outside the Beis HaMidrash, so then you're forgetting what it means to be a Jew, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is actually with us all of the time. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying over here, if you forgot about me, it's never too late. You still have time to return and to do tshuva, and you can practice all the things that I'm teaching you right now. And that is, I'm teaching you, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that I exist everywhere, all of the time. Yeah, it's true, you have to work harder when you're taking a walk for your health down the street. You have to work harder to remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. It's true that if you're going to end up sitting around today and watching your husband's hu and ha at the TV screen because somebody scored a run and it's the final moments and the field goal squad comes on and everybody's sitting on the edge of their seats. They never get so excited by a shiur. They never get so excited for a learning. But this is the most exciting moment in the world. It's hard to remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there at that time. But He is. He actually is there. And if they don't watch the halftime show, then for sure HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be in your house. If they watch the halftime show, I'm not sure that the Shekhinah is going to stick around. But if they turn it off at that time, they come, they daven mincha, or like they have all these organizations that are making kosher halftime shows. Get a little chizuk, hear a shiur, hear an inspiring story, remember what it means to be a Jew. That's the world that we live in. That's the world that we live in, Mrs. Blinder. What can we do? The Yidden are going to be watching, they're going to watch the Super Bowl today. So the best that we can do is tell them, don't watch the halftime show. Don't watch the commercials. Because who knows these commercials, as somebody said this morning in shul, you probably transgressed the 3 cardinal sins by watching any of the commercials that are on the Super Bowl today. So don't watch the commercials. Turn it off. At every break, you turn it off. You want to watch the game? People watch the game. Should we tell them it's usher? We can't tell them it's usher. Watch the game, but do it in a Torah-dik way. What's the Torah way? The Torah way is watch. Enjoy yourself. Have fun. Camaraderie with your friends. Drink a beer. Have some chips and dips. Whatever you need to do. Just turn off all the things that a Jew is not supposed to watch. If you do that, then it means you didn't forget about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Does it say in the Torah that it's usher to watch the Super Bowl? I don't think so. Would I stand up at the pulpit and tell everybody, yes, there's a mitzvah? No, there's no mitzvah to watch it. You can't control yourself, so then fine, so watch it. But watch it like a Jew. How does a Jew watch a game? He watches and he turns off the parts that he's not supposed to watch. So if the Yidden today will have their hand on the remote and every commercial, they'll turn it off, even though they heard already, well, you got to see the commercial for Coors Light, then this. But they turn it off and they don't watch. They're getting big reward. Big, big reward. And then they didn't forget about Hashem. And if they don't forget about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. Not only in the Beis HaMidrash, he's in your house as well. I'm not saying he's in the plasma TV, but he's certainly can stick around in your living room over there because he has a nachas to see that the whole world is going crazy over the commercials and the most immoral halftime shows. From what I understand, Baruch Hashem I didn't see, but what I understand, they just keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse and more disgusting every single year. So if the Yidden turn it off and they do something else, they learn, they come to daven mincha, they sit around and they tell over stories, whatever they're going to do, just don't watch. Hashem says, I'm right there with you. Don't forget about me. Don't think because you're watching the Super Bowl you could forget about me. Don't forget about me, please. Remember who I am. I'm the Ribbono Shel Olam. I like Kedusha. I don't like impurity. I like when Yidden are staying close to me. I don't like when they're going far away from me. You need to watch it? Watch it. But commercials, halftime show, you don't need to watch. Not only do you not need to, I think that it's probably usher to watch those things.
Are those like cheerleaders or something to have commercial?
Well, my understanding is that there is there's music and there is dancing and there is inappropriate things that are going on over there in the way that the women are dressing, the way that the men are dressing, the way that they interact with each other. It's totally inappropriate and bordering, almost I would say bordering on pornography, and a person should make every effort to make sure that they don't watch it. And if the wives should stand guard by the television, and when the halftime show comes along, you tell your husbands, we're not watching it. And we're going to keep HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our house. I'm not going to bother you for watching the game. You're a sports fan, watch the game. This, though, is not for us. And then Hashem stays there. And it's Gavaldik. You got what you needed in your outlet, and you still keep the Ribbono Shel Olam in your house. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying. He's saying, you can do tshuva. I'm here. You don't have to shut me out of your life during this time. And therefore, if you'll do that, so then you will not forget about me. I'll be right here together with you. And the final verse, Zoiveach Toida. If you offer the Korban Toida, this offering of thanks, Yechabdaneni, that is the way in which you will honor me. V'som derech arena, and there I will show you the way. B'yesh Elokim, it'll be the salvation of Hashem. Says Rav Hirsch, and this is, again, this similar idea. And it's not the one that brings me the offerings, who is the one that gives me the honor, says Hashem, but it's rather the one who performs whatever service of me that they're going to do in a humble tribute that they're going to give towards me. Meaning, again, like we said before, you cannot restrict the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu only to the places, to a specific place and an act, a ritual act that a person is doing. Rather, there's some derech, meaning your whole way of derech, your whole way of life. Make sure that you are some that you place over there in whichever path, whatever journey, wherever you are going. Make sure that you place your entire life as an example of how a person could worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no matter where they are, no matter what they are doing. And as he writes over here, someone who is Yirei Shamayim, who fears Hashem, they conduct themselves outside of the sanctuary, outside the Beis HaMikdash, becomes a living reality through which The presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come down upon them. And that, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, will find great favor in my eyes. Meaning the person who can serve Hashem outside the Beis HaMidrash, the way that he serves him inside the Beis HaMidrash, that's really the biggest honor that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can have. And that's why he says this word over here of honor, Yechabdaneni, it has two nuns at the end. It's not the way to spell Yechabdeni. It should be Yechabdeni with one nun. Why are there two nuns over there? Because the double nun is intensifying the meaning that what? That when you keep HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your path all of the time, when you keep HaKadosh Baruch Hu on your mind wherever you are, when you could watch the Super Bowl and still turn it off at what might even be more exciting. What if it's a boring game? Nothing worse than a boring Super Bowl. So imagine it's a boring game. Imagine it comes halftime and there's no score. It's boring. Nobody scored even a field goal. It's boring. So at least the halftime show will give us some excitement. If you turn off the halftime show at that point, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's the greatest honor you could give me. Yechabdaneni with a double nun, it's intensifying the honor, because when you honor me outside the Beis Midrash, it shows to me that it means something to you. It shows me you're not like the Rosh who just gives lip service. Inside the shul, he prattles away and he talks about this and that. But outside, he says, no, I don't want to make that deeper connection. But someone who's made the connection outside, that's the greatest honor and the glory that a person could possibly make to the Ribbono Shel Olam. So we need to have belief in ourselves that more important, say these words, but even more important than how we display ourselves in shul. Everybody's on their best behavior in shul. Everybody try to be. Right? Try to be. We try to be. We know we're in a holy place over here. We know that we came here to daven. So if you already came, you came to daven. You came to learn. You came not to talk. You came not to be brazen. That's why you're here. So we assume that everybody's kind of on their best behavior here. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so I expect that from you. But when I see you outside the shul, when I see you outside on the streets, when I see you in your home, in the privacy of your home, when nobody else is around and watching, and I see that you're still thinking about me, and you're still keeping my ways, and you're still inspiring yourself and becoming a holier person, it's almost more valuable to me than what goes on inside the shul. Because inside the shul we expect it from you. Outside, I have less expectations. And yet you rise to the challenge? What could be more beautiful than that? That means that every act that a person does for the sake of Kedusha, for the sake of getting closer to Hashem, for the sake of raising themselves up outside the shul, it's greater than possibly a Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur, if you could believe it or not. That's what Hirsch is saying over here. Your greatness is not defined when you're in a place that makes you great. So like the Chazal tell us, it's not the place that honors the person, it's the person who honors the place. Which means don't define yourself by where you are, you have to define yourself by who you are. And if you're a person who can still daven and still work on the midos and still be yirei shamayim outside of the makom, outside the place of the shul, inside your house, inside your office place. I think that I told over this Maisa recently. I don't remember, or not. I think that I did, but there was I'm almost actually pretty sure I told it over. But that's the point. The point is that I told the Maisa about the car crash with on the Beltway over there in New York, where it was a frum Jew banged into a non-Jew. Yes, I did, right? And the husband was right. Okay, I found every way I told the story. But okay, there's another story, and this one I'm sure I told over years ago. Pesach Chon had a beautiful story that he told over, who knows, 25 years ago, in the early days of the storybooks. And there was a woman, a young lady, became a Balis Tshuva. And her mother was fighting her tooth and nail. Tooth and nail, the mother was fighting her. And no matter what she tried to show her, I'm such a better person now, and what a beautiful community, it doesn't matter, mother and father wanted nothing to know about this girl becoming from. That's in the days when people came Bali Tshuva. Okay? So she didn't know what to do. She tried. She spoke to her parents. Nothing worked. One day the girl is traveling, and she stopped. If you know the way that it works in New Jersey, there's something called a turnpike. And in the turnpike, there's all these rest stops. And at the rest stop, you stop. And in the olden days, before cell phones, that's how old this story is, if you had to make a phone call, you went to a phone booth. There used to be something called a phone booth. And she went to the phone booth to make a phone call. And she called whoever she had to call, and she got back in the car. And as she's driving away, she realized that she forgot her phone book. She had a phone book with all of her numbers and personal information, and maybe there were credit cards. She forgot it in the phone booth. But she was already far away. She's not going back. She didn't realize maybe she didn't realize she left it, whatever. Anyway, later that day, somebody finds this book, this phone book, and it's a frum person. And there's no name in the phone book. She didn't write her name, who it is. So they're looking, who are they going to call to figure out who this is? So they figure, you know what, look for mom. So they go to the M, and they find mom. And they find mom's number. So they call up, and the woman answers the phone. This Balas Tshuva's mother answers the phone. Yes, can I help you? She says, yes, are you mom? She says, I am a mom. She says, well, I found a phone book that belongs apparently to your daughter, and it was on the turnpike over here. And I don't know who she is, but I see that it says mom over here. There's credit cards, there's money in here. I'd like to return it. So the mother says, you found a phone book with credit cards and money, you'd like to return it? Yes, of course. Found a lost object, I'd like to return it. So they say, Mom, where do you live? So she tells them, oh, you know what, we're not so far from there. I'll get off the turnpike, I'll drop it off. So sure enough, this couple ends up driving to Mom's house, and they knock on the door, and lo and behold, it's a frum couple. And the mother's flabbergasted. And she thanks them profusely, and she calls her daughter and she says, if this is the kind of life that you want to lead, if these are the people that you want to become, then I respect you and I admire you and I give you my blessing. I can't just be a frum yid inside shul. I can't. It doesn't work like that. I can't be frum only when I go to a shir. Of course, you feel more religious when you're at a shir. You feel more religious when you're davening. That all might be true. But even on the turnpike, even when you're driving, even when you're in work, even when you're in business, even when you're at home, even when you're talking to your spouse, even there, you have to be a religious person. You have to be a person who's allowing the Shekhinah to dwell inside of us. So, Im Yetz Hashem, we will take these very strong lessons of Tehillim that Dovid HaMelech is teaching us, and we'll realize, it's a great feat these days to stay connected when you're inside the Beis HaMidrash, when you're inside the shul. It's true, there's a lot going on, there's noise and this and that, and our minds are all over the place. It's not so simple. To stay focused during davening is not a simple thing. But it's even more noble and remarkable when we stay focused on our Kodesh Baruch Hu when we're outside the shul, outside the yeshiva, outside the shir. And that, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's the greatest honor you could give me. If in your house you remember me, I'm honored. If in your workplace you remember me and you act in a certain way that other people say, wow, look at the integrity of that person, look at their integrity and their commitment, and look what they do. That's what it means to be a religious Jew. That's the greatest honor. We should be Zeichem Yetz Hashem in our actions in the Beis HaMidrash and outside the Beis HaMidrash, wherever we are, to bring honor and glory to Hashem.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And once again, I'll just let everybody know, we have a live shir going on over here, and we would love to see everybody back in person as soon as possible. The seats are getting cobwebs over here, so anyone that would like to join us, with pleasure, please. Thank you so much. In the meantime, we enjoy having you on Zoom, and keep it up, and we'll hope to see you back soon. All the best.